Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to plunge into fascinating topics, helping you get well-informed fast. Today we're tackling something really crucial, navigating the hidden pitfalls of ego when you're chasing success. Our main guide for this is Ryan Holiday's book, Ego is the Enemy. It's packed with, well, pretty timeless insights from history, philosophy, all sorts.
Yeah, and our mission today really is to unpack how ego, which, let's be honest, often gets confused with confidence or, healthy ambition, can actually be the biggest thing holding you back. Holding you back from achieving your goals, and maybe even more importantly, finding that sort of sustained fulfillment. This deep dive, I think, is going to reveal some surprising truths about what really leads to lasting accomplishment. It might challenge some things you assume.
Okay, let's get into it then. We all know that drive for success, right? But this hidden enemy, ego, the book says it's more than just believing in yourself. What is it really?
Well, the book kind of boils it down to this core idea. Ego is the voice that tells us we're better than we really are. So it's not that grounded, real confidence. It mentions Harold Gene, the CEO. He actually compared egoism to alcoholism.
Alcoholism, wow.
Yeah, saying, arrogance gets mistaken for power. And there's another great definition from an early AA member. He called ego a conscious separation from everything else.
Conscious separation, that sounds isolating. How does that separation actually hurt us, like in practical terms?
Oh, in so many ways. I mean, if you've built walls around yourself, how can you really collaborate? How can you work well with people? You can't really improve anything if you don't understand the world or even yourself accurately. Ego makes us, well, unable or maybe just uninterested in hearing feedback.
Right. You think you know best.
Exactly. So instead of seeing what's actually there right in front of you, you're living in this fantasy. You miss opportunities. You can't even create them. And if you don't have a realistic sense of your own abilities, that's not confidence. That's just delusion, really.
And you feel like our modern culture just pours gasoline on that fire, right?
Absolutely. The book points out how our culture today actively fans the flames of ego. It's never been easier to talk, to puff ourselves up. You can brag about your goals to millions online. That used to be reserved for like rock stars or cult leaders.
Heck yeah,
We
right.
can interact with idols on social media, get this constant stream of validation. Even call yourself CEO of a company that's just, on paper. It makes it so easy to mistake all that noise, that self-promotion, for actual achievement. And that really raises a question for you listening. What impact is all this having on your journey?
That's a really good question. It's definitely a struggle sometimes, I find, to resist that urge to, well, like I said, puff yourself up instead of just doing the work. Speaking of which, the author, Ryan Holiday, he has a personal story here too, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. He had really early success. Youngest executive at a talent agency, best-selling author by 25. But then he saw these people he really admired, people he kind of modeled his life on, start to just implode
Yeah.
right in front of him. Yeah. And that hit him hard. Made him realize how destructive ego was, not just in their lives, but potentially in his own. He actually got ego is the enemy tattooed on his forearm.
Wow. As a constant reminder.
Exactly.
Okay, so if our culture is pushing this distorted view, how does that play out in terms of actually doing things or not doing them? The book has this surprising idea that talking about our goals, manifesting them, can actually backfire, that talk is the enemy.
It really can be. It's counterintuitive. The book uses Upton Sinclair's run for governor of California back in '34. Before the election, he actually wrote a book called Governor of California and How I Ended Poverty.
Yeah.
It was all about the amazing things he'd done as governor.
Before he was even elected.
Exactly. And people noticed he seemed to lose interest in the actual campaign. He's like he'd already lived it out in his head. The energy went into the idea, not the hard graft of winning.
Yep.
And then there's the writer Emily Gould. She talked about struggling to finish her novel because she was spending a lot of time on the internet. She thought, curating her blog or online presence felt like work, but the actual novel just sat there for a year.
So it's deeper than just wasting time. It's like a psychological trick. The book mentions how visualizing and talking about goals can feel like progress, and it drains the energy you need for what Stephen Pressfield calls the resistance, that internal battle to actually create something.
Precisely. You trick your brain. It gives you that reward feeling, like the work's done, when all you've done is talk. And the counter idea, which is really powerful, is that silence is strength, especially when you're starting out. Kierkegaard warned about this, saying gossip or just talking about things weakens the action before it even happens.
Right.
General Sherman had a rule too. Never give reasons for what you think or do until you must. Maybe a better reason will show up later. And think about Bo Jackson. Determined to win the Heisman, be the top NFL pick.
Yeah.
He told basically nobody except his girlfriend. He just worked quietly. It makes you think, doesn't it? How much are you talking versus actually doing?
That is a challenging one, especially today when everyone's posting everything. I know I'm guilty of, getting excited about the idea sometimes more than the tedious steps. Definitely makes you think. And speaking of challenging ideas, the whole find your passion thing, it's everywhere. But this deep dive suggests maybe passion isn't always the answer. It could even be a trap.
It really could be. The book points to people like Eleanor Roosevelt or the coach John Wooden. They were described as, well, dispassionate. They weren't fueled by this, intense, fiery emotion. It was more about purpose, about reason.
Dispassionate, that sounds almost negative.
Well, the insight is that passion can get you started, sure, but it often burns out. It doesn't have the staying power of a deeper, more rational purpose. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar learned that from Wooden. Real dedication came from practice, day in, day out, not just bursts of excitement.
Okay, I see. And the book gives examples where passion actually led to failure, right?
Yeah, some pretty stark ones. It mentions the Bush administration and the Iraq War lead-up. Christopher McCandless, the End of the Wild guy.
Right, tragic story.
And even the people behind the Segway. They were incredibly passionate, believed they were changing the world. But in those cases, the intense belief kind of blinded them. They couldn't hear objections, couldn't see the reality, and it led to, well, failure.
So passion can make you deaf.
That's a good way to put it. The book says passion often masks a weakness. It calls it a poor substitute for discipline, for mastery, for strength and purpose and perseverance. Real progress, it argues, comes from realism. Asking practical questions. Okay, where do we start? What's the first step? What do we do right now? And focusing on this iterative approach, small steps, getting feedback, building bit by bit, instead of relying on some grand, potentially delusional vision fueled only by passion.
Okay, so purpose over passion, silence over talk. What does this mean for someone starting out or trying to move up? There's this idea called the canvas strategy.
Yeah, I love this one. It draws on Roman history, the antiambulo, literally one who clears the path. This person would walk ahead of their patron, making way, smoothing things out. And the book contrasts this with that archetype of the, angry, unappreciated genius who thinks certain work is beneath them.
I think too good for this.
Right. But the insight is that real leaders often start by serving, by clearing the path for others.
And I like how it reframes the usual advice. It's not just make others look good. It's find canvases for other people to paint on. It's not about being a sycophant, but genuinely helping others succeed, making their work possible, being indispensable.
Exactly. It's about enabling them. And the cumulative effect is huge. You learn so much solving problems for others. You build this reputation for being indispensable. You create connections, build up this bank of favors. It's described as a scalable power strategy. You trade that short-term ego boost, that gratification, for a much bigger long-term payoff. Because eventually, the person clearing the path often ends up controlling where it goes. They've earned the trust, they have the knowledge.
That's a powerful shift in perspective. Okay, but as we're doing this, striving, working, we're inevitably going to face setbacks. Slights, dismissals, one-sided compromises. How do we handle that without ego just taking over and making things worse?
Oh, the transformation of Jackie Robinson is such a striking example here. As a young guy, he was known for being aggressive, had the totally justified anger about racism. He challenged authority, even faced a court-martial.
Right, he wasn't naturally passive.
Not at all. But when he broke the color barrier in baseball, he made a conscious, incredibly difficult choice. He put his ego aside. He endured horrific abuse, racial slurs, and he didn't react physically. He chose the larger cause over his personal feelings, his pride.
That takes incredible strength.
He really does. And compare that to General McClellan in the Civil War. Had all the potential, looked great on paper, but he got so wrapped up in his own grand vision, his own importance, that he just froze. He couldn't act decisively. His ego blinded him to the actual reality of the situation.
That reminds me of what the book calls the imaginary audience, that feeling that everyone's watching and judging us when maybe they're not. It keeps us stuck in our heads.
That's a great connection. We inflate our own importance, play out these mental dramas, and lose touch with what's actually happening. Benjamin Franklin learned that lesson too, didn't he? Walking into that low beam while talking to Cotton Mather.
Ah, yes. Stoop, stoop.
Exactly. Mather told him, "Let this be a caution to you, not always to hold your head so high." Pride, the book says, it blunts the very instrument we need, our mind. It stops us learning. Even John D. Rockefeller, after becoming successful, he fought against complacency. He'd apparently ask himself every night, are you going to be a fool? Let this money puff you up. Keep your eyes open. Don't lose your balance.
Wow. Nightly self-checks.
Yeah. It makes you ask yourself, doesn't it? What are you missing right now because of pride? Because your ego is telling you, nah, you've got this figured out.
That definitely hits home. It's so easy to get complacent. Okay, so we need humility, realism, and work. We've all heard work, 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 but how much are we really talking about? The book suggests a lot more than we think.
Oh, yeah. There's that great quote from the poet Mallarmé talking to the painter Degas. Degas was complaining he couldn't write poetry even though he was full of ideas.
Yeah.
And Mallarmé just said bluntly, it's not with ideas, my dear Degas, that one makes verse. It's with words.
Meaning the actual doing, the work.
Exactly. It's the difference between a professional and a dilettante. The dilettante just plans or, chats with impressed friends. The professional puts in the hours, does the often unglamorous work consistently. The real progress comes from the sweat, not just the flashes of inspiration.
And it's not like there's a finish line, right? The book stresses there's no end zone to mastery. It's about constant effort, not hitting some magic number or achieving brilliance. Like Charles Darwin, just working quietly for decades on his theory before publishing, just grinding it out.
Right. And this connects to an idea from Ira Glass, the radio guy. He talks about the taste-talent gap. You start out in a creative field, you have good taste. It's good, but your own early work, disappointing. Your talent hasn't caught up.
Oh, I know that feeling.
We all do. And in that gap, ego can rush in. You might use bluster or sheer force of personality to cover up the shortcomings, but the real path, the book argues, is humility. Face your shortcomings honestly and just put the time in. Bridge that gap through work, not ego.
It's about becoming good, not just pretending you already are. Such a crucial distinction. So, okay, let's say you do the work, you achieve success, you reach the top. What happens then? The book warns about something called the disease of me.
Ah, yes, the disease of me. Pat Riley, the basketball coach, coined that. He noticed how winning teams could shift. They start with the innocent climb, everyone working together selflessly. But after success, individuals start thinking about their own importance, their own stats, their own credit.
Oh.
Yeah. The book gives examples like Shaq and Kobe, their famous friction, or Michael Jordan literally punching teammates.
Right. Success becomes the test.
Exactly. It can turn that collective strength into individual weakness, driven by ego.
Which makes the story of General George C. Marshall Jr. even more remarkable. He somehow avoided this disease of me.
He really did. The book highlights his incredible selflessness, like actively telling people not to promote him. And that famous decision to turn down command of D-Day, saying Eisenhower was better suited. Think about that level of humility.
Unimaginable for many.
Right. And he kept an old general in a job, even though that general had treated him badly before, because the guy was still useful. It was about the mission, not personal feelings.
His wife said his ambition was tempered by humility and selflessness. He wouldn't even look at his own portrait.
Yeah. It shows someone truly focused on duty, not the ego trip of success. And it prompts a question for you listening. How can you practice that kind of selflessness? Especially when it's tempting to grab the credit or the spotlight. How might that change things?
That's a really deep challenge, especially when, like we said, culture rewards the opposite. Success itself is intoxicating. How do we stay grounded? How do we keep that clear head when everyone's telling us how great we are?
Angela Merkel is a great example again. That story about her as a young swimmer standing on the diving board, thinking, considering, until the last moment.
Cautious. Realistic.
Exactly. It reflected her later philosophy. Fear is a bad advisor. She was grounded, not swept away by hype. And there's the Zen philosopher Zwingen's daily check-in. Become sober. Do not be deceived by others. The book suggests adding to that today. Don't be deceived by recognition or the amount of money in your bank account.
Ooh, good one. Stay sober.
Yeah. The insight is that clarity comes from cutting through the noise, both external praise and internal self-deception.
The historian Shelby Foote said power fragments, closes options, mesmerizes. Ego clouds the mind. People like Bill Belichick or Merkel are admired for their contempt for sizzle. They want the steak, the substance, not the flashy presentation. Effectiveness over appearance.
And the consequences of not staying sober, of letting ego run wild, are pretty dire.
Yeah.
Look at Napoleon. He sought happiness, found fame, but his empire just crumbled. Ego led him to chase empty victories.
Right.
Or Howard Hughes. Legendary, rich, powerful, but utterly miserable. That story where his aide says he had an incredible life, and Hughes replies, essentially, if you swap places with me, you'd beg to swap back in a week. The book argues ego literally killed him. It teaches us we have to actively guard our clarity, push back against greed and paranoia, stay connected to the real world, not get lost in the bubble of success.
That is a sobering thought indeed. Okay, but what about the flip side? What happens when you do put in the work, you pour everything in, but the rewards just don't come? No recognition, no compensation.
Ah, Belisarius, Rome's greatest unknown general. His story is just incredible and kind of heartbreaking. He saved Western civilization like multiple times. But the emperor Justinian was paranoid, kept undermining him, stripping his wealth, leaving him totally unappreciated.
Oh.
But Belisarius, the book says, he accepted the bargain. His purpose came from inside, from doing the right thing, serving his duty. The external rewards, they were just extra. He built his own internal validation. His worth wasn't tied to what Justinian thought. That's the powerful insight.
That is so hard, though, because ego expects the reward to match the effort, right? The book calls it an expectation hangover when it doesn't happen. You feel cheated, bitter.
Absolutely. Ego demands fairness, recognition. Remember Alexander the Great meeting Diogenes. The most powerful man asks the philosopher if he needs anything. Diogenes just says, yeah, stop blocking my son.
Huh. Deflating the ego.
Exactly. External indifference, the book says, can be a sore thing. But maybe the most poignant example is John Kennedy Toole. Wrote A Confederacy of Dunces. Genius novel. Got rejected over and over. It broke him. He died by suicide.
Oh, wow.
And then his mother gets it published posthumously. It wins the Pulitzer Prize. What changed about the book? Nothing. It was the same book. The external validation was completely arbitrary. It's a harsh lesson, but it shows we just can't let external results define the worth of our work or ourselves. The value has to be in the effort, the doing.
Wow. Okay, so sometimes the world is indifferent or even hostile, and sometimes we just hit rock bottom. It happens. It's painful, disorienting. But the book suggests maybe there's an opportunity there.
Yes, the idea of katabasis. It's from Greek mythology, a going down, like a descent into the underworld. Characters go through hell, basically, but they emerge with deeper knowledge, a new understanding. Think about J.K. Rowling before Harry Potter took off. She was really struggling. Or Charlie Parker, the jazz musician, getting laughed off stage, which forced him to practice obsessively.
Humiliation as fuel.
Right. Or Lyndon Johnson's early political defeat that shaped his whole career. The book even uses the Fight Club metaphor. Jack's apartment blowing up, a forced rock bottom to shock him awake. What links these is that the external blow, the descent, strips away the ego, the self-delusion.
Yeah.
It forces this raw, honest look at reality you just can't get when things are comfortable.
But the painful part is ego often causes the crash in the first place, and then it stops us from learning. We get stuck in self-pity or blame or distraction. We don't want to see how our own choices led us there.
Exactly. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
But these moments of katabasis, they nearly always come from outside us. They often reveal things we kind of already knew but were afraid to face. And they offer this incredible opportunity for great progress and improvement. Hemingway's line comes to mind. The world breaks every one, and afterward many are strong at the broken places. But those that will not break it kills.
Intense.
And Vince Lombardi. A team, like men, must be brought to its knees before it can rise again. It's about seeing these crushing moments not just as pain, but as potential crucibles for becoming stronger, more authentic, precisely because the ego gets smashed.
Okay, so when we're down there in that crisis, ego is screaming, why me? But how we respond, that's what defines our character, isn't it?
Absolutely. Look at John DeLorean again. His downfall was bad enough, but he made it worse by fighting desperately, refusing to accept reality, digging the hole deeper. His ego wouldn't let him stop. Contrast that with Steve Jobs. Huge ego, obviously. But after getting fired from Apple, a massive public humiliation, he learned from it. He started NXT, Pixar. He worked to fix the flaws that got him fired in the first place.
He used the katabasis.
He did. The insight is, ego might cause the fall, but humility and realism can pave the way back, make you stronger.
It reminds me of Adam Smith's indifferent spectator idea. Having this internal, impartial judge for our actions, it stops ego from finding loopholes. Well, it's not technically illegal, or nobody'll find out.
That's a great point. Having that internal standard separate from what ego wants. And then there's the whole trap of bitterness. The book calls it the paradox of hate and bitterness. Think of the Streisand effect. Trying to suppress something just makes it bigger. William Randolph Hearst tried to destroy Orson Welles' Citizen Kane.
And ended up making it legendary.
Exactly. Wells, unlike Hearst, where someone like Dave Mustaine, who was bitter for decades about Metallica, chose not to let it consume him. He preserved his own peace.
Yeah.
It brings to mind Frederick Douglass facing racism.
Yeah.
They cannot degrade Frederick Douglass. The soul that is within me, no man can degrade.
Wow.
That's true resilience, not letting the outside world, the slights, the failures, define your inner worth or stop you moving forward.
So wrapping this all up, the core message seems to be that ego is this constant sneaky enemy, often look like a friend, like ambition or confidence, but it's working against us. But if we can understand it, see its tricks, cultivate humility, embrace the actual work, and focus on purpose instead of praise, we can actually free ourselves up. We can do the real work we want to do.
Exactly. It's about getting out of your own way. And hopefully this deep dive has given you some things to think about. Maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. What could you achieve? How much more authentic could your life be if you made a conscious effort day by day to silence that loudest voice in the room? Your own ego.